The great crystal hall on Zarian Prime sparkled with light from a dozen different suns. Ambassador Zalaki clicked her sharp mouthparts as she looked at the papers in front of her. The humans wanted to join the Galactic Council. How funny. "Look at this," she said to the other aliens around the massive table. "They still use rockets that burn chemicals. Their computers are slower than our children's toys. They only left their home system 50 years ago." The tall, gray crone beside her sent thoughts into her mind without speaking. The thoughts felt amused and a little mean. "These mammals think they belong with us. We have ruled space for thousands of years. They are babies." Ambassador Zalaki agreed. The humans were like insects trying to join a meeting of eagles. She had seen their ships, ugly metal boxes that moved slowly through space. Their weapons were simple projectiles that could barely scratch the paint on real warships. Their technology was so basic that her people had used better tools in their ancient history. Admiral Vextar stood up at the head of the table. He was from the Hegemony Fleet, the strongest military force in the galaxy. His blue skin gleamed under the crystal lights, and his 4 arms moved as he spoke. "The humans will be given protectorate status," he said. "They can keep 3 star systems under our watch. Their military will be destroyed. Their expansion will stop. This is how we help primitive species." The other aliens nodded. This was normal. When young species found space travel, the older races would take control. It kept peace in the galaxy. The strong protected the weak, even if the weak did not always want protection. Elena Vasquez sat at the small human table. She was the Earth ambassador, a middle-aged woman with dark hair and calm eyes. Around her sat 5 other humans, all looking very quiet and respectful. They had traveled far to reach this meeting, and they seemed honored to be here. "We accept your generous offer," Elena said when Admiral Vexitar finished speaking. Her voice was soft and grateful. "Humanity would be proud to learn from your great civilizations." The aliens smiled, if they could smile. Some clicked approval, others sent happy thoughts. The humans were being smart. They knew their place. But Elena watched everything carefully. She saw how the Zalathi moved their arms when they were excited. She noticed that the Kron always paused before lying. She counted the weapons each species carried and memorized the guard positions. Her team did the same, their eyes missing nothing even as they looked humble. The meeting continued for hours. The aliens talked about trade routes and shipping laws. They discussed which human worlds would be allowed to have factories and which ones would just grow food. They planned humanity's future, like parents planning for a small child. "Your ships will be scrapped, of course," said the Vorthak representative. His snake-like body coiled as he spoke. "We cannot have weapons floating around controlled by untrained species." "Of course," Elena agreed. "We understand completely." What the aliens did not know was that the ships they had seen were not humanity's real fleet. Those chemical rockets and simple fighters were toys, built specifically to fool watchers. In the dark space between stars, invisible to all sensors, waited the true human armada. Elena thought about the UES Defiance, floating silent and unseen just outside this solar system. Its captain, Sarah Chen, was probably watching this meeting through quantum links. The ship itself was larger than anything these aliens had ever built, wrapped in technology that bent light and gravity to hide its presence. The humans had spent 50 years preparing for this day. While the galaxy thought they were struggling with basic space travel, human scientists had been solving problems these ancient species did not even know existed. They had taken quantum physics and turned it into weapons. They had cracked the secrets of zero-point energy. They had built artificial intelligence that could think faster than any biological brain. Most importantly, they had studied their enemies. Every alien signal, every trade route, every military base had been cataloged and analyzed. Human spies had lived among these species for decades, learning their weaknesses and mapping their defenses. The galaxy thought humans were primitive, so they had let humans get close. "The ceremony will be held next month," Admiral Vextar announced. "The human fleet will surrender their weapons then. After that, you will be full Protectorate members." The aliens began to leave, their different bodies moving in strange ways toward the exits. Some floated, others crawled. A few walked on legs like humans, but wrong somehow. They chattered to each other about trade deals and new markets, already planning how to profit from humanity's resources. Elena and her team gathered their papers slowly. They bowed to the remaining aliens and spoke words of thanks. As they walked toward their simple transport ship, Elena activated a tiny device hidden in her sleeve. Light years away, Admiral Chen received the signal on the bridge of the Defiance. Around her, the true human fleet began to move. Hundreds of ships that could appear and disappear like ghosts started their engines. Weapons that could tear holes in space itself began to charge. The message Elena sent was simple. They took the bait. Begin Phase 2. In the Crystal Hall, the last aliens were turning off the lights. They felt satisfied with their work. Another young species had been brought safely under galactic protection. The universe remained orderly and predictable. They had no idea that their comfortable galaxy was about to change forever. The humans they thought they controlled were actually the most dangerous force ever to emerge from the darkness between stars. In trying to cage humanity, they had given the perfect predator access to everything they wanted to protect. Elena looked back at the crystal spires of Zerion Prime through her ship's window. Soon, she knew, those towers would witness something no one in the galaxy expected. The age of alien superiority was about to end, and it would end exactly as humanity had planned from the very beginning. The trap was set. Now it was time to spring it. Admiral Thecamore stretched his massive arms as his fleet moved toward the human home system. 200 ships followed his command vessel, each one larger than a human city. The bioships were alive, grown rather than built, their hulls breathing slowly as they moved through space. "Primitive mammals," Thecamore muttered to himself. His species had been traveling between stars when humans still lived in caves. This would be easy work. The human system looked exactly as expected. A few small patrol boats moved near the planets. Some mining stations floated around asteroids. Everything seemed weak and helpless, just like the intelligence report said. Thecamore's communications officer, a thin creature with 6 eyes, turned toward him. "Admiral, we are receiving a signal from the humans." "Put it on screen," Thecamore ordered. A human woman appeared on the main display. She was older, with gray hair and bright eyes. She wore a simple military uniform that looked cheap compared to hegemony armor. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command," she said. "You are approaching sovereign human territory. Please state your intentions." Thecamore laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. "I am Admiral Thecamore of the Hegemony Fleet. By order of the Galactic Council, you will surrender all military vessels and submit to our authority. You have 24 standard hours." Admiral Chen looked directly at him through the screen. Her expression never changed. "Admiral Thecamore, you have made a terrible mistake. You think you know what humans can do. You are wrong." "Little mammal," Thecamore said. "Look around you. I have 200 warships. You have a few patrol boats. Do not test my patience." "You are right about one thing," Chen replied. "You do have 200 ships. But you are wrong about what we have." The communication ended. Thecamore stared at the empty screen for a moment, then shook his massive head. Humans were even more foolish than expected. "Begin the advance," he ordered. "Destroy any ship that does not surrender immediately." The hegemony fleet moved forward like a school of great space whales. Their bioships pulsed with energy as weapons charged. Thecamore felt confident. In a few hours, this system would belong to the galaxy. Then space itself began to change. It started as a shimmer like heat waves rising from hot ground. The emptiness between stars began to ripple and bend. Thekmor's sensor officer started making worried sounds. "Admiral, I am detecting massive energy readings, but I cannot locate the source." "Impossible," Thekmor growled. "There is nothing out there but vacuum." The shimmer grew stronger. Reality twisted in ways that made alien eyes hurt to look at. Then, like curtains being pulled away, the truth was revealed. Ships materialized out of nothing, not the simple metal boxes the aliens expected, but sleek predators that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. They were beautiful and terrifying, their hulls flowing like water while crackling with contained energy. Hundreds of them, all around the hegemony fleet. At the center of the human formation, a ship the size of a small moon began to appear. The UES Defiance looked nothing like human technology was supposed to look. It was elegant beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen, its surface covered in patterns that seemed to move on their own. "Impossible," Thekmor whispered. "Our intelligence said they had primitive technology." Admiral Chen's voice came over all frequencies at once. "Admiral Thekmor, you see ships built with 50 years of preparation. While you thought we were playing with rockets, we were studying you. While you believed we were weak, we were getting strong. We showed you exactly what we wanted you to see." Thekmor's communications officer was frantically working his controls. "Sir, these energy readings are beyond our understanding. These ships should not be possible." "All ships, attack!" Thekmor roared. "Destroy them all!" The hegemony bioships launched their organic missiles and fired their plasma cannons. Streams of living fire reached out toward the human vessels. It should have been the end of the upstart species. Instead, the human ships simply were not there anymore. They had not moved. They had not jumped to faster-than-light travel. 1 second they were in the path of alien weapons. The next second they were somewhere else entirely. The hegemony attacks hit empty space. "What sorcery is this?" Thekmor demanded. His answer came in the form of return fire. The human weapons were unlike anything in galactic databases. Beams of pure force that seemed to ignore shields entirely. Projectiles that arrived before they were fired. Energy bursts that made space itself scream. The first hegemony ship to die simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, the next moment there was only empty space and confused radio signals. Admiral Chen appeared on Thekmor's screen again, but now her simple uniform had changed. She wore armor that seemed to be made of controlled energy, and her eyes glowed with inner light. "You wanted to see our real technology," she said calmly while her ships tore apart the hegemony fleet. "Humans learned long ago that survival means adaptation. We adapted to you." The battle was not really a battle. It was a demonstration. The human ships moved through space like dancing light, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons struck with perfect accuracy, disabling alien vessels without destroying them completely. Thekmor watched his mighty fleet fall apart in minutes. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds were helpless against technology they could not understand. His own vessel shook as human weapons tested its defenses. "How?" he managed to ask. "We listened," Chen replied. "For 50 years we listened to every signal, every transmission, every piece of data your species broadcast. We learned your weaknesses. We discovered your limits. Then we built ourselves to be better." The Defiance moved closer to Thekmor's command ship. It was so large that it blocked out the stars. Weapons that could crack planets focused on the alien admiral. "You have a choice," Chen continued. "Surrender now and live to tell your people what you have seen. Continue fighting and share the fate of your fleet." Thekmor looked around his bridge. Half his ships were gone. The others were floating helplessly, their systems shut down by human technology. His own weapons would not even fire anymore. "I surrender," he said quietly. "Good." You will return to the Galactic Council. You will tell them exactly what happened here. You will warn them that the age of pushing humans around is over. The human ships began to disappear again, fading back into invisibility. Only the Defiance remained, hanging in space like a dark promise. Oh, and Admiral, Chen added, when you report to your superiors, make sure you tell them this was just one small human fleet. We have many more. Then she was gone, and Thekmore was alone with the wreckage of his pride and the certain knowledge that the galaxy would never be the same again. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from 12 species crowded into the crystal chamber, their voices creating a chaos of fear and anger. The news from the human system had reached every corner of galactic space. Impossible, clicked Ambassador Zalaki, her mandibles sharp with rage. Thekmore's fleet was the strongest in the galaxy. Humans cannot have defeated it. The Kron collective mind buzzed with new emotions they had never felt before. Fear was not something their species understood well, but now it filled their shared consciousness like poison. The reports are confirmed, sent the lead crone telepathically. 200 hegemony ships reduced to scrap. Only Thekmore's command vessel allowed to escape. The humans call it a warning. Admiral Vextar stood at the center of the chamber, his 4 arms shaking with fury. This cannot stand. We gave them protectorate status out of kindness. They respond with violence. The mammals must be crushed completely. How? Asked the Vorthak representative, his snake body coiled tight with nervousness. If they can defeat the hegemony so easily, what chance do the rest of us have? The question hung in the air like a bad smell. Every species in the chamber had relied on hegemony military strength for centuries. If the humans could destroy that force so completely, then no one in the galaxy was safe. We must unite, Vextar declared. Every fleet, every weapon, every soldier. The humans are only one species. We are many. But even as the alien leaders planned their response, human ships were already moving. Across 12 different sectors, vessels that no sensor could detect were taking position. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's first demonstration had been gentle compared to what was coming next. On the Zalathi homeworld, Hive Queen Sektar was meeting with her war commanders when the attacks began. The first sign was the communication relays going dark. Ancient satellites that had operated for thousands of years simply stopped working. What is happening? The Queen demanded, her voice echoing through the underground chambers where her species lived. Her answer came in the form of explosions across the planet's surface. Military bases that had never seen combat were being destroyed with surgical precision. But the strange thing was that only military targets were being hit. The civilian hives remained untouched. In orbit above the planet, human ships flickered in and out of existence like deadly ghosts. They appeared just long enough to fire, then vanished before return fire could reach them. The Zalathi defenders were shooting at shadows. Commander Tekvai of the planetary defense grid tried desperately to organize a response. "Focus fire on grid 77 Alpha," he ordered. "That's where the last shot came from." But when his ships fired at the coordinate, there was nothing there. The human vessel had already moved to attack from a completely different angle. It was like fighting an enemy who could be in many places at once. The same scene was playing out across the galaxy. The Kron Collective found their psychic networks being jammed by technology they could not understand. Their telepathic coordination, which had made them masters of space combat, was useless when human quantum signals disrupted their mental connections. The Vorthak Syndicate, proud of their ability to predict enemy movements through advanced mathematics, watched their predictions become meaningless. Human ships moved in patterns that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. They would be in one location, then instantly appear somewhere else, as if distance meant nothing to them. On the ocean world of Aquanis, the fish-like nautiloids received a communication on their deepest emergency frequency. The message was simple but terrifying. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command. Your military satellite network has been disabled. Your orbital defense platforms have been destroyed. Your fleet has been scattered. This is not an invasion. This is a lesson. When you are ready to talk as equals rather than masters, we will listen. Similar messages were being broadcast across the galaxy. Everywhere the human ships struck, they left the same calling card. Complete military defeat, but no civilian casualties. It was a demonstration of power that was somehow more frightening than simple destruction. The hegemony leadership gathered in their great biochamber, a living room grown from modified coral that could think and plan alongside its occupants. Admiral Vextar floated in the center, connected to the chamber's nervous system by organic cables. "How many fleets have we lost?" he asked. His aide, a younger hegemony officer with bright blue markings, consulted the living data feeds growing from the walls. 17 battle groups completely disabled. 43 orbital installations destroyed. The humans have struck at targets across our entire territory, but only military ones. Why do they spare civilians? Vextar wondered aloud. The biochamber itself answered, its voice like wind through ancient trees. Perhaps they are not the savages we believe them to be. On Earth, in a command center hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Chen stood before a display that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked human strike locations. Blue dots showed remaining alien military forces. The pattern was clear to anyone who understood strategy. "Status report," she ordered. Captain Maria Santos, her tactical officer, read from her displays. "All targets hit successfully. No human casualties. Alien resistance is collapsing faster than projected. They were not prepared for asymmetric warfare." "Of course they weren't," Chen replied. "They've had peace for so long, they forgot what real war looks like. They fight with rules and honor codes. We fight to win." Around the command center, dozens of human officers coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history. Every strike was planned to cause maximum military damage while avoiding civilian harm. It was a precision campaign that no alien species could have imagined, let alone executed. "Admiral," reported the communications officer, "we're receiving surrender requests from 14 different species. They want to negotiate." "Not yet," Chen said firmly. "They need to understand completely what they're dealing with. Phase 3 begins in 6 hours. Back in the crystal chamber on Zerion Prime, the Galactic Council was learning the meaning of helplessness. Reports flooded in from every corner of their territory. Human ships were everywhere and nowhere, striking at will and disappearing like mist. "We must contact them," pleaded the Nautiloid representative, his gills flapping with panic. "Perhaps we can reach some agreement." "Never," snarled Ambassador Zalaki. "We do not negotiate with primitives who attack without warning." But even as she spoke, the chamber's great crystal walls began to vibrate. Outside, through the transparent ceiling, they could see shapes moving among the stars. Human ships, dozens of them, hung motionless above the galactic capital, like dark promises of what was to come. A new voice filled the chamber, transmitted directly through their communication systems, despite all security measures. "This is Admiral Chen. You wanted to make humanity your protectorate. You wanted to control our expansion and dictate our future. Now you see the cost of underestimating those you consider inferior. We are coming to Zerion Prime. Prepare for the final lesson." The transmission ended, leaving the alien leaders staring at each other in the growing darkness. Outside, the human fleet began to move toward the planet that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. The age of alien superiority was ending, and everyone in the galaxy was about to witness its final moments. The space around Zerion Prime had never seen so many warships in one place. 8 species had sent their remaining fleets to defend the galactic capital, 2,000 alien vessels formed defensive rings around the crystal world, their weapons pointing outward toward the approaching human fleet. Admiral Vextar commanded from his new flagship, the massive bio-vessel Eternal Dominion. Around him, the greatest military minds in the galaxy worked desperately to create a strategy that might work against the mysterious human technology. "They have only 300 ships," Vexitar told his commanders. "We outnumber them 7-1. Even with their advanced weapons, numbers must count for something." The Zalathi Admiral Kezlak clicked her mandibles in agreement. "My swarm fighters will overwhelm their defenses. No matter how fast they move, they cannot dodge 1,000,000 projectiles." The Krone battle mind shared its confidence across all linked vessels. "Our psychic coordination will allow perfect teamwork. The humans fight alone. We fight as one." But in the crystal chambers far below, the members of the Galactic Council watched their combined fleet with growing fear. They had seen what human ships could do to single fleets. What would happen when humanity faced the concentrated might of the entire galaxy? Ambassador Zalaki stood at the great observation deck, looking up through the transparent ceiling at the thousands of ships above. "Perhaps we should have listened to their surrender demands," she whispered to herself. The human fleet appeared at the edge of the system like a dark tide. 300 vessels that seemed to be made of flowing energy and controlled starlight. At their center, the UES Defiance dwarfed everything around it, a ship so large it seemed like a small planet. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the alien formations through displays that showed reality in ways no organic eye could perceive. Behind her, the command crew worked with mechanical precision. Their minds linked to artificial intelligence systems that could process battle data faster than thought. "Assessment," she ordered. Captain Santos consulted her tactical displays. 2,000 enemy vessels in 7 defensive rings. They're using standard galactic defensive doctrine. Completely predictable formations. Weaknesses? "All of them," Santos replied. "They're fighting the last war, not this one. Their formations assume enemy ships will behave like their ships do. They have no defense against multi-dimensional tactics." Chen nodded. For 50 years, human military scientists had studied every battle the galaxy had ever fought. They had analyzed every tactic, every formation, every strategic doctrine. The aliens were about to discover that their own military history had become a weapon against them. "Begin Phase 1, Chen ordered. The first human attack came from directions the aliens had not even considered. Ships emerged from hyperspace inside the defensive rings, having somehow bypassed every sensor and barrier. They struck at command vessels and communication hubs with devastating precision. Admiral Vextar felt his flagship shudder as human weapons found their target. "Impossible! How did they get through our defenses?" His answer came in the form of more explosions as human ships flickered in and out of existence throughout the alien formation. They fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen, appearing in multiple places at once, striking from angles that should not exist. The Zalathi swarm fighters launched their attack, a cloud of 1,000,000 tiny ships moving like an angry insect swarm toward the human fleet. Admiral Kezlak watched with satisfaction as her fighters filled space with projectiles and energy beams. But the human response was devastating in its elegance. Instead of trying to dodge the swarm, they simply made it irrelevant. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the destroyer Retribution, activated her ship's phase generators. The human vessel became translucent, existing in normal space, but not quite touching it. The Zalathi projectiles passed harmlessly through the ship as if it were a ghost. Then Santos brought her ship back to full reality and opened fire with exotic matter cannons. The result was beyond anything the aliens had imagined. The Retribution's weapons didn't just destroy enemy ships, they unmade them at the atomic level. Entire squadrons of Zalathi fighters simply ceased to exist. Their matter converted back into energy and scattered across space. The Kron tried their psychic assault, focusing their collective mental power against the human ships. They had used this technique to drive enemy crews insane, but when they reached out toward human minds, they found something impossible. The human crews were not just biological anymore. Their brains had been enhanced with quantum processing cores that operated on principles the Kron could not understand. When the aliens tried to invade human thoughts, the enhanced minds turned the attack back on itself. Across the Kron fleet, telepathic officers screamed as their own psychic assault was reflected and amplified. The collective mind that had coordinated their species for millennia shattered into fragments of confused thoughts and broken connections. Admiral Chen watched the battle from multiple viewpoints simultaneously, her consciousness linked to the Defiance's central AI. She could see every ship, every shot, every tactical decision as it happened across the entire battlefield. "The Vorthak are trying to use predictive mathematics against us," reported her tactical officer. "Their computers are calculating our most likely moves." "Show them why that won't work," Chen ordered. The Defiance itself became the demonstration. The massive ship split into 7 identical copies, each one moving in a different direction. The Vorthak computers went crazy trying to figure out which one was real. But the truth was that they all were real, existing in parallel dimensions that human technology had learned to access. Each copy of the Defiance opened fire with its main weapon, a device that Chen's scientists simply called the reality gun. The weapon didn't fire energy or matter. It fired alterations to the fundamental laws of physics in small areas of space. Where the reality gun's beam touched alien ships, the laws that governed matter and energy suddenly changed. Metals became liquids. Energy patterns reversed direction. In some areas, time itself slowed down or sped up randomly. The alien fleet began to fall apart not from conventional damage, but from having their basic existence rewritten by human technology. Ships aged 1,000 years in seconds. Others found their hulls becoming gas while their crews remained solid. The lucky ones simply exploded. Admiral Vextar watched his fleet die in ways that had no names. His bioship's living hull was trying to understand what was happening to it as human weapons rewrote its genetic code in real time. "Signal surrender," he ordered desperately. "All ships, signal surrender immediately." But the battle had gone beyond conventional rules. The humans had demonstrated that they were not just superior. They were operating on a completely different level of existence. They had transcended the normal limitations of physics and biology. As the last alien ship powered down its weapons, Admiral Chen appeared on every communication channel throughout the system. Her image was broadcast to every surviving ship, every space station, every planet in the system. "This is Admiral Chen," she said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "The battle is over. Your fleets are defeated. Your military power is broken. But you are not destroyed, because we chose not to destroy you." She paused, letting that reality sink in across thousands of alien minds. "You treated us like children who needed protection. You tried to make us your servants. Now you know the truth. We were never the primitive species you believed us to be. We were predators pretending to be prey until the moment came to hunt." In the crystal chambers below, the Galactic Council members watched their military might become wreckage floating in space. The ships that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were now helpless debris around their capital world. "The age of galactic dominance through force is over," Chen continued. "What comes next depends on whether you can learn to treat others as equals rather than subjects. We will give you that chance, but only once." The transmission ended, leaving the survivors to contemplate a galaxy where the most powerful force was not the oldest or the largest, but the one that had learned to adapt and transcend every limitation. Above Zerion Prime, the human fleet hung like dark stars against the void, beautiful and terrible reminders that the universe had new masters now. 1 year after the Battle of Zerion Prime, the galaxy looked completely different. Where once the old Galactic Council had ruled from crystal towers, now a new assembly met in the halls humans had built on Earth's moon. Representatives from 47 species gathered not as masters and servants, but as equals working toward shared goals. The change had not been easy. In the months following humanity's victory, many alien species had struggled to accept their new reality. Some had tried to rebuild their military forces in secret. Others had retreated to their home systems and refused all contact. But most had begun the difficult process of learning to live in a universe where strength came from cooperation rather than domination. Admiral Sarah Chen, now bearing the title of First Admiral of the Terran Federation, stood before the assembly as delegates took their seats. The chamber was a marvel of combined technology. Human engineering enhanced with alien knowledge, creating something greater than either species could have built alone. Behind Chen, a great window showed the blue marble of Earth, turning slowly in space. It was no longer the isolated backwater world the galaxy had once dismissed. Ships from dozens of species moved through Earth's orbital space, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible just months before. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," Chen began, her voice carried by translation systems that rendered her words perfectly in every alien language. "We gather today to mark not just the anniversary of the war's end, but the beginning of something that has never existed before, a truly united galactic community." In the audience, Ambassador Zalaki sat beside human diplomat Elena Vasquez. The Zalathi's mandibles, which had once clicked with arrogance, now moved in patterns that her species used to show respect. She had learned much in the past year about the cost of underestimating others. "The humans could have destroyed us all," Zalaki whispered to Elena. "Why did they choose mercy instead?" Elena smiled. "Because destruction was never the goal. We wanted partners, not subjects." Across the chamber, the Kron delegation sat in silent communion with human technicians who wore neural interfaces. The combination of Kron telepathic abilities and human quantum computing had created new forms of consciousness that neither species could have achieved alone. They called it symbiotic intelligence, and it was revolutionizing everything from space navigation to medical treatment. Admiral Vextar, former commander of the Hegemony Fleet, now served as the Terran Federation's Minister of Biological Sciences. His knowledge of organic technology combined with human innovation had led to breakthroughs that seemed like magic, ships that could heal themselves, planets that could be transformed in years instead of centuries, and medical techniques that could cure diseases neither species had been able to treat alone. "The integration has exceeded all projections," reported Dr. Sarah Kim, head of the Federation Science Council. "Zalathi swarm intelligence combined with human computer networks has created distributed processing systems that can solve problems we never thought possible. Nautiloid deep-sea knowledge has helped us build underwater cities on 100 ocean worlds. Even the Vorthak mathematical predictions have become more accurate when combined with human chaos theory." Chen nodded as she listened to the reports. This was what she had hoped for during those long years of preparation. Not conquest, but synthesis. Not domination, but cooperation between species that each brought unique gifts to the greater whole. "The war was necessary," Chen addressed the assembly, "because sometimes you must demonstrate strength before others will accept partnership. We showed you our weapons not because we wanted to use them, but because we needed you to understand that we were offering cooperation from a position of equality, not weakness." On the great display behind her, star maps showed the new reality of galactic civilization. Trade routes that had been controlled by single species for millennia now carried goods from dozens of worlds. Research stations staffed by mixed crews pushed the boundaries of science in every direction. Most importantly, Military patrols of combined human-alien fleets worked together to protect everyone from the dangers that still lurked in the dark spaces between stars. The transformation had not been limited to technology and politics. Cultural exchange was changing both humans and aliens in unexpected ways. Human art had been influenced by Kron telepathic poetry and Zalathi nest songs. Alien philosophy had been enriched by human concepts of individual rights and personal freedom. Commander Maria Santos, now captain of the joint species vessel Unity, spoke about her crew. "We have humans working alongside beings they had never imagined a year ago. We have hegemony bioengineers teaching Earth botanists how to grow living spacecraft. We have nautiloid navigators showing human pilots how to read ocean currents in space itself." But perhaps the most important change was the one that could not be measured in technology or trade agreements. For the first time in galactic history, species were learning to see beyond their own limitations by working with others who thought differently. "The humans taught us something we had forgotten," said Hive Queen Sektar of the Zalathi, her translated words carrying across the assembly. "They showed us that strength does not come from being superior to others, but from making others stronger alongside yourself." Elena Vasquez stood to address the gathering. She was the same woman who had sat quietly in the crystal chambers of the old council, accepting terms that everyone believed made humans inferior. Now she spoke as the Federation's Secretary of Interspecies Relations. "We spent 50 years preparing for war," she said, "not because we wanted to fight, but because we knew that peace without strength is just another form of slavery. We hid our capabilities not from cowardice, but from patience. We waited until we could offer you partnership as equals rather than beg for acceptance as inferiors." The assembly erupted in sounds of approval, clicks and whistles and telepathic harmonies that combined into something like applause. It was a sound that represented 47 different species agreeing on something important. Admiral Chen returned to the podium for her closing remarks. "When human ships first decloaked around your fleets, many of you thought it was the beginning of a new age of conquest. You were right, but not in the way you expected. We did not conquer your territories or your governments. We conquered the idea that the galaxy had to be ruled by fear and force." Outside the Lunar Assembly Hall, ships from across the galaxy moved through space in formations that would have been impossible under the old system. Human vessels with their flowing energy hulls flew alongside hegemony bioships and Zalathi swarm fighters. They were no longer enemies or master and servant. They were explorers heading out into the unknown together. "The stars are vast," Chen concluded, "and there are challenges out there that no single species can face alone. But together, with our combined knowledge and capabilities, there is no limit to what we can achieve. The age of galactic ignorance ended in blood across the stars, but from that ending, we have built something better." As the assembly session ended and delegates began to mingle, the future seemed brighter than anyone had dared to hope. The galaxy that had once looked down on humanity as primitive children now followed human leadership toward discoveries that none of them could have imagined alone. In the end, humanity's greatest victory had not been military. It had been the transformation of enemies into allies, of competition into cooperation, and of a fractured galaxy into something approaching a true civilization. The human vessel that had decloaked that day had revealed not just advanced weapons, but a vision of what the galaxy could become. And among the stars, that vision was becoming reality one world at a time.